Mark, my man. Or should I say Aubrey? Actually,
it's fitting. It's fitting. Two Aubreys at one table.
Two
is actually a
Aubreys
good
at
thing.
one table. When someone said that there was Marcus Aubrey and Aubrey Marcus, I was like, nah, come on, man. You're pulling my leg. But here it is in the manifest.
Here it is. And I'm going to have a hard time calling you Aubrey because that's my dad's name, and I'd never look at my dad and call him Aubrey.
Right.
So if I look at you and call you dad, even though you're younger and more handsome, like that's a different thing. So
right.
I'll work on the Aubrey
Yeah,
thing.
like I would never call my mom Kathy.
No.
That would be weird.
Yeah.
It's mom.
Exactly right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I love it though. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of goodness there.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. There's so much we could talk about, man.
Sure.
But I think, one thing I definitely want to get into is you now are, founder and transition actually out of the CEO role, which
correct, yeah.
you once had.
Yeah. Now we're having success.
But at a certain point, this whole thing was just an idea, just something
Sure.
you felt called to do. And now Exos is this massive machine that touches millions, literally millions of lives.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But that starts with just like a calling first.
Yeah.
So where did that calling start? Where did that impulse, where you were drawn to this? Where did that begin?
Well, I mean, I think, when you go way back for a really long story, we have an hour, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just joking. No, I think we're also, as we come out and we join this amazing connected world and the energies, I think I've always come out of the womb and I have fulfillment in helping others achieve their goals. And if you talk to my mom and dad, they probably said I've been like that since I was a little kid. I was always conscientious. I always wanted to help people. And I think, what the great part about it is when you align your purpose and your passion together, I think great things can happen. I believe like you that if you share your intent, right, and that genuine intent that, it's a law of attraction. And I would say that Exos exists today out of probably the singular word of responsibility. Somebody I cared about said, hey, I'll do whatever it takes ethically to achieve my goals. You just let me know what that is. Mm-hmm. And as someone, if you're going to take that responsibility and own it to your new book, you better own it. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you have to do it all, but it better mean that you take that responsibility with you and fulfill your promise. Because at the end of the day, all we're going to have at the end of the day is our relationships with others. And I think that's really where it was all born. That was shouldering that responsibility for a person who lived inside this body, and this person tended to be a professional athlete at the time, or not a professional athlete yet and up and coming. And I just, from that point on, wanted to create the most optimal environment I could to help people achieve their goals. And Exos today at the most simple form is, simply to understand and upgrade lives.
Yeah. Are you talking about that person as a metaphor for all the people, or was there a specific person?
No, I'd use it as both a specific person and a metaphor, but I can't, I have a few specific people, but that's why it grows really rapidly. And I think that's been our driving success in both attracting great teammates that I've had a great eye for talent and, believe in them as professionals and as people. But what it also means to each one of our clients, to understand and then upgrade is a really critical component. If we,
you got to get
as individuals,
level.
absolutely,
you got to sit on the same grass that they sit at. And I think that's a big issue with this whole industry that we're in. It's coming from top down. It's like, let me speak to you from the mountaintop.
It always drives me nuts. My wife, Amy, and I think we mentioned last night at dinner, we've been together for 28 years. Today's her birthday. Whoop, whoop. We sell it all month long, nice. Right? It's awesome. And an unbelievable high performer. She always looked at our field and she said, it's just egotistical. So it's just so much ego and so much testosterone and thing. Right. When you're there to serve others, it has nothing to do with you. It always has to do about them. And that understanding, and we like to say, finding the person living inside the body and truly seeking to understand where they're currently at, how they got here, and where do they want to go. And a lot of times they don't always know. And I think the more you seek to understand and help them define where they want to go, then we have a great capability to then upgrade and facilitate and remove the friction from that journey or that path. And if Exos doesn't have it solely, part of our great success is we've also been very respectful, very humble to reach out to others we feel are absolutely best in class And that's part of the reason I sit here today, is we both share that same passion, and we've come at it in different ways to solve the same thing.
Yeah.
And I need you and I need your team's expertise to help us continue to fulfill our responsibility to upgrade lives.
Yeah, no doubt. You said something that's really interesting, and this is going to take us on a bit of a tangent, but you were talking about the person inside the body. And I recently had an experience where I felt like for the first time, my soul, my higher self, my spiritual self, my consciousness met my body directly without the friction of my ego. Like my ego has been the communicator that's been basically translating a lot of the times through my awareness about what I wanted to achieve and what my body was doing. And I kind of was able to remove that in one of my ceremonial experiences. And it was really interesting having that without the judgment that comes from the self about what the body should be doing, how it is performing, how it's not performing, where it's failed you, why it's vulnerable, why it's weak, but have that direct communication. And I started to really recalibrate a lot of things in my life. Like the mental aspect of the body, like as the ego, is a huge impediment for us really understanding what the body wants, because it's always telling, it's not really listening.
Egotistical.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
the ego is egotistical.
It's telling, it's judging, it's always, it has a really antagonistic relationship with the body.
Yeah.
And I think, as someone who's driving these massive transformations in people, you're having to deal a lot with people's mentality surrounding their body. And so have I, ideas about vulnerabilities, ideas about what I wanted it to do, but not providing the right input. How have you worked with the human, that's really, because the body knows what it really wants if you're able to listen, but how do you work with the human who isn't quite listening to the body? And how do you use because you're a great coach, how do you get in there as a coach and start to kind of pull the dials and levers and have things start to make sense? What's your strategy?
You just hit it on the head. I mean, when we talk about our approach, in order to reach performance or have sustainable high performance, you have to have the 4 raw ingredients that aren't individual silos, but that are the strands of your DNA. And that's mindset, nutrition, movement, and recovery. And I don't care what you're passionate about, what you're good at, raising your family, neurosurgeon, concert pianist, it doesn't matter. If you're going to reach a higher level, you have to have those 4 raw ingredients to sustain. And to me, the number one thing, like, we always start above the neck. And I think one of our great strengths has been just being very good listeners, intent listeners about what are they trying to tell us. And I think asking the right questions, which you can get into the whole neuroscience and motivational interviewing and get into that, but getting at like what truly is it that makes you special and that you're passionate about. And sometimes you have to unlock that for people. I think that's the biggest thing. Once we have that, everything else is linked to that, what we call their it, that intrinsic motivator, but it's their it. It's when they first wake up in the morning, like this vision or this statement, like what is that thing that, like, why they exist on this earth?
And once you help mission,
that it, like, it's, prepare for it. You fuel for it, you move for it, and you rest for it. Like, it's all about that it, but people don't always know their it. And once you start to understand the it, you can remove the frictions that you're often talking about, because it now all has purpose. Yeah. And now I can sustainably think about eating well, not because I'm on a diet, not because I'm trying to lose weight for the body or for the ego it's about all of a sudden I'm using that to fuel this vision and this it. And that intrinsic motivator is everything. And I think as an organization and as an individual, that's what I've always tried to find. Because once I have that, then it stops being about Mark being an extrinsic motivator, Exos being an extrinsic motivator. And it's tying it to like, hey, I'm listening to you. I'm hearing this from you. If that's true, everything we're going to do is going to line up around that. And that horsepower that comes from getting all that clean. I mean, that's what, ultimately, like we kind of understand now, is this flow state.
Yeah.
And that ego is much baggage. And the baggage that people have to carry with them each day, it's amazing that they're unbelievably strong. But when they can free themselves from that baggage, that emotional baggage and all these things that should have been, could have been, would have been, like, just if you can leave it there and focus on what we're going to do forward, it frees them up.
Makes it really simple. it's that thing like, what do you want to do with your life more than anything else? So much so that if you didn't do it, you couldn't even breathe.
Exactly right.
Like when you really know what that thing is, first of all, it helps you jettison all the other crap.
Spot on.
Maybe the 8-pack abs doesn't have anything to do with what you really need from life. Yeah, you need to be healthy and be able to move, but being totally shredded, and maybe that's just some ego sidetrack that you could get on, or being totally swollen big and super muscly. Like maybe that's an ego. Maybe you'd rather be a rock climber, really. Like if you tapped into what you really wanted to experience, you'd like rather hike and climb and do yoga and things, but your ego is telling you, no, I got to be a big, strong man because maybe somebody bullied you when you were younger and you're compensating for this or that. But when you really like listen to that voice, that whisper of like, hey, what do you want to do, man? Like what is that? Then when you know that, like you said, then everything can kind of line up, and you'll stop doing certain things. You'll start adding other things. And then it's just about providing the information. The information is actually the easy part. Because we all actually, if we all did a fraction of what we know we should do, we'd be
simple
killers.
Things done savagely well. But we end up screwing it up, right? And I think, I love that though. That's a part that, and listen, we're going to all go through these phases. We all have in our life. Some people stick in each chapter a little bit longer than, others. But the fact is, it doesn't really matter when you find kind of that purpose, that vision, but it sure makes it freeing. All of a sudden, you don't become the slave to the 8-pack abs, even though I think once you kind of find your flow and your purpose toward that, you'll probably find it's easier to get there and sustain it.
It might be a side effect.
Totally.
The
it totally
8-pack
is
abs
a side
might
effect.
be a side effect of you, pursuing your purpose.
Absolutely.
But when you make them the primary goal, then that's when things get screwed up.
Absolutely right. And I think that you stated it, even last night, like to find joy, true joy, and that mixed with kind of the hope that your vision, or you've defined it and then it's right there, and that you actually can own the day, or as we like to say, every day is game day, right? Like you own and you can win the process every day to take incremental steps toward those goals. And that is so fulfilling that it truly, right, that starts to really make you happy.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to talk about a really aligned life. And, one thing that we do find, and we take care of, across our global leadership position in sport, tactical and first responders to, we take care of more population health, employee populations across some of the greatest companies globally, 180 or 200 clients that we have, and community centers, right? And I think when you start to look at the population health in each one of these individuals, like it's really tough because we care for the caregiver. And that's always been a big thing for us. In sport, listen, there's 7 to 15 support staff for each elite athlete. Wow. You go into military, in the elite military, you'll find very similar enablers in that ratio. Now you flip over here to like all the rest of us outside of Aubrey Marcus, but all the rest, because you have such an awesome team here. But you start to look at all the rest of us, and we're probably caring for 7 to 15 people in our lives, right? And if you think about your significant other, might be your, kids or the rest, or you're carrying up, right, to your aging parents. And if not, then you have your friend network, and there's 7 to 15 people there that you're investing in caring for. And I haven't even talked about your professional life yet, right?
Yeah.
So when you start talking about that, we're talking about people, and if they're truly caregivers, what we found are often in the worst bit of health because they don't put themselves first. They put all these other elements, these other people first, because that's their duty and that is their purpose. And that is why they get up every day and why they do a world-class job. But we need to get them to understand that I need you to take care of you so that you can continue to help these people accounting.
Only a full
But they don't have a support staff of 7 to 15 people. And I think that's why Exos exists, to help create those individualized game plan, to seek to understand them, to create an individualized game plan that meets them where they're at and where they want to go. And I know that's exactly where you feel that you've created solutions for people that are sustainable in their life that allow them to continue to do that.
Yep. And then, just a process, I think we should talk about that a little bit.
Love it.
Because I think people, it's daunting. Like, let's say you're 50 pounds overweight, and all you're focusing, you're 225, you want to be 170, and all you're focusing on is 170. Then it's like, damn, you're losing a quarter of your body weight. The steps that you have to take to get there. I mean, if you just focus on the end point, it's like impossible. Or if you're trying to learn a language and all you're focusing on is flying to Paris and speaking fluently with the, director of the art gallery you want to visit. Like, that's daunting. But what's not daunting is popping in that Rosetta Stone first CD.
There you go.
And just practicing a few words. What's not daunting is, all right, maybe you haven't worked out in 3 months. All right, well, let's go for a walk. Let's move around. Let's throw the Frisbee with our dog. Let's, drop into a beginner's yoga class. Let's start the movement process. Let's start making a few better choices with our diet, substituting fats for sugar in some of the earlier meals of the day. And then it starts to be reasonable, and I think that's what I'm trying to do with the book. And that's what you guys are always trying to do too. Like a game plan that's focused on what's the next best step rather than, oh, I got to be this, I got to be that. This is the end goal. And then getting frustrated because that doesn't happen immediately.
Yeah. And I think there used to be a quote that, impossible is nothing. That analogy to lose that amount of weight or to speak fluent at the art gallery. Listen, it's great to start with the end in mind, but what we really focus on, and much like, your new book and our approach is like, listen, if I believe that someone's heard me, how I got here and where I want to go, and I know that they are a responsible, trusted source that have my best interest in mind and have the resources available, and they've customized a game plan that might be the most simple thing. It might be 1 or 2 things a day that I'm just going to start to do, to your point. Man, if I know it that and I have confidence in that game plan, the great thing I love about that is now all of a sudden there is a process, and just achieving 1 or 2 steps in that process every day. And it's not a scale. It's the process. Like, okay, I woke up and I drank 6 ounces of water and I rolled my foot on the tennis ball while I brushed my teeth. Yeah. That's unbelievable. But they start to own that process. Confidence, ultimately that achievement turns to confidence, which turns to courage, which unlocks their world. And I think the weight loss will be a byproduct. Unfortunately, this egotistical, marketing-driven fad, weight on the scale, those are the only metrics. And the only thing that really encourages me today about some of where technology is permeating our lives is it allows us to get more process-related metrics that I can start to focus on the quality of my sleep. And I can start to focus on kind of getting some feedback to build these new habits and behaviors, 90% of which are going to run in my non-conscious. So I'm all about upgrading the software. And some of these things will help motivate me long enough to build enough competence to confidence to courage.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you said, I think speaking about sleep is one of those things that's incredibly crucial. But I think the actual gamification of that I use a tracker called the Oura Ring.
Love it. Yep.
Yeah. And it's really highly accurate. It shows deep sleep, shows REM sleep, shows light sleep, shows the time that you're awake. It's not like one of those movement trackers.
With the great user experience, right?
With a really good, You just put the ring on, it's connected automatically, great app on your phone. That's been really cool because then it gives you like a number. And sometimes I get mad at the number because it'll penalize you for sleep timing and it won't know that I've had some travel or something else like that.
You have to bring the context to it.
You have to put the context to it. But for the most part, like I know if I'm scoring in the 80s, then I'm good that day.
Exactly right.
Like I'm really good that day. And if I'm scoring in the, 70s or low 60s, all right, I got to take a nap that day.
Sure.
And it's just a little bit of information and data when I'm actually the least conscious possible when I'm sleeping has helped me prioritize that goal.
Love it.
So I know that, man, like I've actually been on a roll lately. I've got 87, 85, and I feel like a champion.
Right? Like that's the thing,
like a damn champion.
And now
right
you know
now.
why, though. It wasn't, this other thing. It's like, hey, listen, there's a correlation to that. And that's why, like I said, that's a perfect example of this gamification, getting some of the metrics. And it might only last 4 to 6 weeks because, for most people learning that skill set, they're like, you're going to start to know whether you had some 80s or some 70s or 60s.
Sure.
And then I think the greatest part is that, and Craig Friedman, who leads our performance innovation team at Exos, what we're set up to do, like our long-term vision, the big kind of long-term one is we want to understand and upgrade lives. And we also believe that the future, that technology would ultimately permeate our lives. From the sheets that we sleep on to the clothes or patches that we wear give us information. And that's been happening over, and this is probably the, early to mid 90s. But the goal was, so what? Now what? And what I love, you track sleep monitoring, and all of a sudden you throw that in, or you talk about movement quality, and I throw that into the vernacular of an elite athlete. The next day they're walking, they're like, Aubrey, what was your score on sleep last night? They're like, oh, I was at 87. It's like, damn it. And the first thing that guy's running over to me is like, hey, Mark, how do I get my sleep better? And it's like, we're starting the conversation. Like sleep's unbelievably important.
Exactly.
And sometimes those, like a physical thing, like a reminder of a rubber band around your wrist or something that you're taking this new habit or ritual and you're tying it to an existing habit or ritual, allows you to adopt these behavioral upgrades, not change, but behavioral upgrades more rapidly. And sometimes like an Aura ring says, hey, this is a game on that. But if I had the conversation with you about the importance of sleep, I don't physically anchor it to anything or an existing habit, then trust me, by the end of the day, you're not going to remember what we talked about. Sure. So that's why I love those types of things of what's coming for people.
Yeah, I think so. That's one really valuable thing. And then another thing is really just understanding how universal some of these things are applied. Like
the human system,
how the human system is. I was listening to, I actually was just listening to a podcast between Aaron Alexander and Connor Moore on this podcast called the Pleasure Monkey Podcast. And Aaron Alexander's, his platform is really about movement quality and like body integrity. And, I don't have the best posture normally, and I'm not even doing it right now, but
no, that's better.
Yeah.
You got it now.
But, listening to him talk about how when the body is bound and constricted in certain ways, like the emotional body is bound and constricted in certain ways. And we talked about power poses this morning. There's done psychological studies on how confidence and testosterone will improve just by putting your shoulders back and doing like a superhero stance. Yes. Like physiologically, hormonally, emotionally, your body changes depending on the expression of your body. Like if you get Botox in your face and you can't smile, guess what? You're less happy, but you might also be less sad because you can't frown. And there's these studies that are like incredible about how, and I was thinking about that. And so he's talking about how all these bodies that get just kind of hunched over in this defensive kind of almost crippled, wounded posture as their default, shoulders rolled forward, neck rolled forward, back tight and all of this. And that's not just affecting the body.
Oh, no.
This isn't just about running and climbing a fence and doing all the, doing sports. This is about how you express yourself every single second of the day.
Absolutely.
And when I was really thinking about that, about my own posture, how my own neck tilts forward, and I was like, oh, if I want to be my best emotional self, spiritual self, let alone my physical performance, which I'm actually pretty happy with. At 37, I don't have a lot of big physical goals that I can't do. I can still play volleyball and play around, but it's like, I want to express myself to the best of my ability in totality, I got to correct these things.
Yep.
And that was like an eye opener for me as well, that it isn't just, it's not just losing the weight because you'll look good. Like what are the other effects of that? What's the effect on energy that you're going to have? What's the effect on movement you're going to have? What's the effect on your emotional body? What's the effect on your spiritual body, altering that composition?
I love it. And I think that's the richest conversation right there. And I could probably share like a 550-page white paper at Exos that we call the Performance Code. And it's really about the mindset, nutrition, movement, recovery. And not like just a whole bunch of white papers around how, your behavioral approach and like it's about that interrelationship. And it's really this matrix that is kind of the foundation of our methodology. And people wonder how we've been successful in sport or in tactical or in population health. And it really goes back to make sure we understand and then we upgrade. But we do that with this holistic approach to decrease pain, prevent pain, to help you perform, to make sure you're fueling in those ways above the neck and below the neck. Now gut health is, and I know you have some of the greatest products and I enjoy taking them and I notice the difference. But, gut, we always thought that it was brain driving gut, but it's gut driving brain. And yes. In our posture, it goes both ways. Now, it may take me, to your earlier example, a long time to lose the 50 pounds, but we can change posture in a matter of seconds to minutes. Right. We can release someone's hamstring like that. And that's usually where you start to create this confidence or this trust. It's like, oh, I've always had tight hamstrings. Oh, really? That's not a bad thing. Like a lot of people, I'd rather have them have tighter hamstrings. But to show that, oh, if you want to change that, we can change that. Like do this, 30 seconds, dink, dink. And now they can touch their toes. Whoa. It's just touching your toes.
And then all those self-limiting beliefs,
bam.
Just showing it to them once, like all those self-limiting beliefs are like, oh, wow. Yeah. I now know that I'm more powerful than I thought I was before.
Yeah. And Aubrey, that's a part that I love. And I think that one thing we're always really clear about, because, people see us for what we've done in professional sport. And then they'll say like, oh, what do I have to do with professional athlete? I get it. Like there's way more relatedness for me to see somebody 4 doors down in the office or cubicles down and like, man, what have you got going on? Your posture, like, and you've got some energy in your step and you look me in the eye when you're talking to me and you're like, I have relatedness to that, not necessarily scoring 40 points last night in an NBA game.
Yeah.
But I think when you start to look at the opportunity to engage with people and let them have a quick win, man, that's everything. And I think like that posture piece of things, that's like, our bread and butter has always been pillar strength, the complete integration of your shoulder, your torso, and your hips. And that's where it all starts. It's an education and it's something you get to do all day long. And you can own that and we can turn those little things on just like circuit breakers. And it goes back to the movement quality. I mean, if it's going to happen now in years, and I always said before I die, there's a couple things I want to happen. I want to redefine the youth physical, and I also want to like make a movement out of movement. And not like just going to move, but like the quality of your movement matters. We're born with like perfect sequencing and all the right stuff. And then we spend the rest of our life screwing it up.
Yeah, that was.
And this movement quality is everything, right? It's spectacular to decrease pain, prevent pain, perform. And now technology is caught up to where you can actually capture it now. What we used to do in research grade that took us 45 minutes to mark you up, we can now do in like 3 seconds. And the second time we mark you up, there isn't 20% variability. It's like 99.9% variability. And that scientific analytics, like now we can start to gamify and actually quantify movement and movement patterns for all ages. And that's, again, something that we all have common and you can upgrade just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I recall like, in those moments where, I was really tapped into my body and listening to the voice of my body, I would find myself doing these odd aerobics and odd stretches. And it was like, my body was just laughing at me. Like, what did you do, man?
Exactly
like I gave you a perfect plan. Like everything was working right. And you silly monkey, you sat in a desk for 12 hours a day. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, that's weird. We got to correct that. We got to alter how you handle this. We got to alter the way you move. Well, look at those muscles you built. What did you do those for? Like, what was your goal, buddy?
Man, you love those internal rotators, man.
Yeah, exactly.
All the stuff
Why
you can't see in the mirror.
throwing things like that way? And it's
good
funny.
though.
It's good.
And I think, listen, it's at the same time, like I love to meet people where they're at. And if they are moving, whether it's dysfunctional, whether it's like, hey, they're moving. Like sometimes in this space with so much egotistical, blockage and, people's ego, like it's automatically a passing judgment on somebody or this. So we're trying to break it down and, there's a whole thing. And listen, we're in it. We do that stuff, but celebrate people for what they are doing. Give yourself credit for what you are doing. And when we seek to understand with people, we'll say, hey, here's what we learned from you. We love these things that you're doing. And what we want to do is we're going to bolt on a few different things to some of these things you're doing well, and they're going to give you more superpowers. But like, let's not discredit everything. And I think, our challenge in coming from a perspective of this, in Onnit language, total human optimization, like that was our responsibility. At Exos, we're saying you're already the best at what you do. You're coming to us to get even better. Oh, and we only have 6 hours or 6 days or 6 weeks to do it. But what we really looked at was also this, reduction of injury risk mitigation standpoint. And we had to grow up between those two things. And it gave us a very critical eye, which is great. But one of the things I want to do is like, hey, listen, let's start the conversations. Congratulations, Aubrey, on all your success. Tell me how what are the things that you do well? Take a little bit of time to understand this person that's living inside the body that's sitting in front of you. Like you're doing things well or you wouldn't be here. Yeah. The same is held true for all the people we support inside the corporations. You're a professional and you probably have family. And like, tell me how you're here. You're doing something well. And now let's start to take that as a foundation, seek to understand. And now how do we upgrade that with something that we know will give you like the highest level to achieve? Because I can give you 12 things, but if your confidence around doing those 12 things is 12%, I'm not going to give them to you. If I can get it to where it's raising above 90% that I can achieve that, I can do that. That's where I want to start. And if I use that as a beachhead, then I'm good. Yeah.
You're like the epitome of the archetype of a good coach. But the world is full of shitty coaches.
Like
I remember my basketball coach and a lot of coaches that I've had, just driven by fear, driven by constant criticism, constantly breaking you down, constantly telling you what a piece of shit you are.
That's all that ego baggage.
Yeah,
That's their ego
yeah.
baggage. They're like, Sharon, I got lots of baggage.
But that's like that was the traditional coaching model
Sure.
for a lot of, and then you see someone like Pete Carroll who turns that model on its head.
Yep.
You know, and I tell that story all the time where, you know, I think it was a couple years ago, Seahawks were playing the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
And Russell Wilson had a horrible first half, like threw 3 picks. And every time Pete Carroll was like clapping, patting him on, like, come on, man, you got this. I believe in you.
Yep.
Like his belief was infectious, that
Yep.
positivity. And then they started to make that comeback. And then that positivity started to ramp up even more. And
It's
then,
everything.
Yeah. And then on the other side, McCarthy started getting down on his team. You know, I remember there was an onside kick right at the end of the game when the Seahawks had to do it. This guy Bostic goes up to catch the ball, bobbles it, and McCarthy's just in his grill, like, blah, blah, blah. Like he had any choice in the matter of whether he bobbled it.
Right.
Of course he didn't want to, you know, but instead of firing up his defense to say, all we got is one stop, guys, we got this, is no problem. They still got 60 yards to go to win the game. We're going to stop him right here. He's busy yelling at his fucking guy, you know, and I'm sure, and I know he's a great coach and whatever, but that's, you know, that decision might have been the difference between his defense knowing that his like our coach believes in us, and then their belief in themselves got better. And it's just a weird thing where we haven't transitioned to realize that that kind of positivity, that support system, playing not from fear, but from inspiration, from passion, from love from your teammates. Like that's what's going to get the best result.
And that's probably, you know, what I think people need to look past sport and the winning and the losing and the technical and the tactical and look for that. And I think that example you gave is probably one of the greatest. And I think those are the defining moments in sport, but I think it's also our defining moments of self.
Yeah.
That you need to manage yourself. And you have a coach, an internal coach, a voice in your head. And a lot of times all they're doing is like, oh, you totally screwed that up. Oh, you totally did that. Or you, versus like, you know, I made it, like, leave it. Like, and that's the thing about the difference between sustainable high performance is you realize you're not going to be perfect all the time, but through this continuous improvement loop is I need to learn from it. Got it? Like, it's not okay to just make mistakes all the time, Russell.
Yeah.
He knows Russell. That's not Russell.
Yeah.
So like, I don't need to compound that. Let me get Russell refocused on the move forward. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's the great thing. And it's not just about sport. It's about how we have our own inner voice, our own inner talk, and giving ourselves credit. Coach yourself that way, and also surround yourself with people that do that. And what you just hit on was one of my favorite Woodenisms. Coach Wooden, I've had the honor to listen to him speak, and he gave a story about willingness versus eagerness. And as a culture, Exos is about a positive culture. If there's one thing that we brought when you walk through our doors or you see that our people, or this affinity that people attract now to this culture, it's around positivity. It's not fluffy because we're a high performance organization. We have metrics around everything. So we know whether you're performing or not. It's just, we don't get to just talk about performance. We do perform, but that has to be wrapped up in positivity. And when people start to give themselves credit for that positive approach to things, hey, listen, failures are the greatest learning experience of all time. Learn from it. Let's move on and get refocused on what's possible. Yeah. Positivity is a powerful thing, but you know, at the same time, I get filled with a lot of fluff, right? And there's people like just motivation. Motivation doesn't do you any good without a winning game plan.
Yeah, because you won't take it to heart. You know, like as you said, the only coach we're really fully going to listen to is that internal coach that we have. And we do listen to that internal coach. And maybe, you know, there's influences from the outside, and that the external coaches can maybe influence our internal coach, show us a different way to do it. But really, like, we're going to listen to that voice because we are the only ones who really know, did we fucking give it all we got?
Exactly.
Did we prepare correctly? Did we do everything we possibly could, or did we allow those negative thought patterns to go?
And if you own the process, and like right now is the NFL Combine time, right? And you have some great young athletes out on the floor here at Onnit. And at Exos, we have over 140 kids getting ready for the NFL Combine. I think 100 and some are actually going to the Combine out of 250, 275. Listen, what we want them to understand is like, you need to own the process. From the day that we're having you walk through our doors, there's positivity, but there's process. And when you wake up every morning, from that first thought through your head, the gratitude that goes through your head, you viewing how this day is going to unfold and giving an intent, you having an actionable game plan, and you owning every single step along the way, I'm going to come back and talk to you in 6 weeks, 4 days before the Combine. And I want you to be able to look yourself in the mirror and know there's nothing more that I could have done at this point in time in my life to be more prepared to go out there, relax, get in a good flow state and just let it go. And if you can't honestly have that conversation over the last 6 weeks, if I've done all that I can to have success, then you should have a little bit of doubt. But you own that. That's your decision. You better learn from it. But man, when we line them up on owning the process and you're saying, man, could I have fueled any better? Could I have had any more of my Onnit swamp water before my shooters, right? And my krills and my, grass-fed whey after. Like you go to every raw ingredient of every single action from the very first second to the last second of your day and you set up great sleep and you just know you owned everything about that. That is that confidence turning to courage to go to the biggest event of their life at this point in time and they perform.
Yeah.
And I love that, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the motivation, getting people fired up. Like I can do it. But if I do that and I don't leave somebody with an actionable plan to sustain that, then that is the absolute worst thing that I could do because essentially I've created hope and then I had a hero complex and I just take that egotistical nature and I just take that hope and I just gave it to you. And I'm taking it back because I have all the answers, but you got to come see me. That stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Nah, it's not what we're here to serve.
Yeah. I think, one of the traps that we can all get into is the amount that we'll punish ourselves for a mistake is wildly disproportionate to the amount that we'll love ourselves for actually doing our best.
Oh, that's a beautiful point.
And I think if that's out of line, you're always going to have fear in the system. And fear is a retractionary thing. Fear is something that's going to not cause the greatest result, right? Like it will contract you. And the absence of fear will allow you to be free and creative and flow and fluid.
Love it.
And so making sure that, you don't just beat yourself up, but when you do something good, you just sit back and go, whew, yeah, good job, man. You did your best. Well, even if you missed the shot or whatever, like, you know what? Like you took the shot, you did the best you could.
Yep.
All right, you missed, but good job, man.
I make more than I'm gonna miss.
Exactly. Like,
and I think that goes back to that point about, the Carol analogy, right? This Coach Wooden, when I had the opportunity to listen to him, willingness, people in sport, and a lot of people probably listening, they're willing to do what it takes. It's sacrifice. It might be extrinsically motivated. They may want 6-pack, lose 50 pounds. Like they're willing to do what it takes. And Coach Wooden say, I don't even want you to come to practice until you're eager to do what it takes, to have exactly what you just stated, that excitement and eagerness and belief and joy and fulfillment from the process. That's what makes things special. And I hope
because that's when you're doing it for you,
man, that's like for you, but also even in team environments, you're doing it for something even greater than yourself.
True.
And this is what we find in elite performers. And it's a really sad thing, or it can be a really beautiful thing. The benefit of sport and what we see in elite special operations and some of these first responders where there's a greater good here. I'm serving a greater good. I want to perform at my absolute best because I don't want to let Aubrey down. I don't want to let the other person standing next to me down. And we share this vision. We have signed up on this purpose. And I am signing on as an individual to make sure that I fill my role to this greater good of this team and not let my brothers and sisters down. Yeah. Like that is the purpose in life. That is why the community and this Onnit community that you've built and that we built at Exos, this community and this belief system is allowing someone to power far greater than they ever would do on their own because it's a we versus the me. And that unlocks this truly special thing. The sad part is, and we have people who have amazing educations, amazing, not just IQs, but EQs, emotional quotients that have been successful in sport. Maybe they weren't the superstar. Maybe they were, maybe they were backup the whole time, 15-year career, didn't even think they'd ever make it. A lot of different business interests, a lot of different community interests. And the day that they are no longer a professional athlete or they're no longer a member of that unit of that team, they go into some of the deepest levels of depression, even when they're the most prepared. And in the last collective bargaining agreement, one of my roles, I've served as the performance director for the last 18 plus years for the NFL Players Association. And because we see past, present, and future players, one of these gaps is former players, and we have the exact same thing happen in the military, is watching a high performer no longer being associated with that team. And I think the stat at one time in professional sport was 70% of professional athletes were suffering from three things: either financial distress or bankruptcy, hard to believe, substance abuse or addiction, and either financial hardship. So we had finance, we had relationship, so divorce or domestic violence. And those are the types of pieces where you're like, okay, what's wrong with the system? And part of it is reestablishing their purpose, reestablishing, what this process can get back to them.
The team provides that tribal identity. It provides the we. And then you go back into society and it becomes solipsistic. There's family, but then family dynamics are often pretty screwed up and challenging and difficult. And, you don't have a common goal with your family. Every individual in a family typically has their own goal. I mean, in a good husband-wife partnership, then they'll align. And sometimes the kids will be a part of that too. But like your greater family isn't all working for the same purpose. But on
family versus team is like willingness versus eagerness. Family you're stuck with. Team, everybody has a responsibility, and you got to be highly functioning to help support one another.
I think that's a big missing piece in our societal structure, is like forming those tribes, and that's something that I'm really eager to. And it's a book that I intend to write a few years down the road. And I plan to try and actually blueprint out what it looks like to recreate, a kind of tribal identity where you're all working towards the same thing, sharing the spoils. Like when the team wins, it's not you who won, it's we who won. You all share the laurels of that victory. You all share the spoils of war evenly, and that's the beauty of this. You're fighting for the same thing, you're sharing the same thing, you're going through the same rituals, these hardships, and that's a part of what it's like to be alive. That's what Sebastian Junger in his book Tribe, even in the times of most abject difficulty in war, when the bombs were falling on London, and everything, every night the air raid sirens were coming on, like the people in London would reminisce about how happy they were in those horrifying times, because they were all pulled together. It all felt like a team. If you had a sandwich, your brother had half a sandwich, because you were staying alive, you were fighting together. Even the common people were like that. And that kind of team environment is where we really thrive. And we got to find the ways to actually recreate that outside of sport.
Absolutely.
And we can use sport great, but sport won't last in a meaningful way forever. No. Because like the YMCA basketball league, I've tried. It doesn't mean the same amount as it meant when I had
I just picture, kind of the hairy back, the sweat, the whole.
No, it doesn't work the same. No. Like when I had 2,000-3,000 people and I was wearing that Westlake Chaparrals jersey, and I had everybody who I walked through the hallway who was going to be watching me, and the newspapers and the parents and it mattered. Sure. It fucking mattered. And our team mattered. And
that team taking the floor and acting as one. Different than you go out to the YMCA. I give you all those other ingredients you just said, but if that team doesn't act as one, it's like the greatest letdown, right?
You got this joker over here wants to take threes. It hasn't hit the rim.
You have Aubrey Marcus over here, and you have Mark Aubrey over there, right? Oh, no, don't feed him the ball, right? Yeah. But I think that's the great part that actually energizes me. And I think when we go back to the original question, what I'm most proud of, I know you are here, is the culture at Exos. That's what gives me the greatest fulfillment, right? Is fulfilling our promise to our clients, and doing that, because if you really kind of look at how we logic chain our thing, if we're going to truly put the person in N of one at the start, my next question is, what do they need to be successful? So what is this optimal methodology around mindset, nutrition, movement, recovery, and all these different environments? These red threads are the same, right? And then after that, well, who do I need to help them be able to do that? And that was by, our mission statement: provide the finest performance systems, specialists, and platforms seamlessly integrated to efficiently and ethically enhance our clients' performance. So you put the person at the center. You figure out based on what we know today in science and neuroscience and fueling and movement and recovery, how those all interact together. How do I remove the friction and give them people to be coaches across those elements? And training to Exos, again, it's not about these muscles. It's training means building skill sets to create sustainable high performance. You don't think about all day long. They get you to the flow state. They run on the backside on that 90% of the non-conscious. It's working for you. It's easy, right? You make your day look easy. And after that, it's like, what does that support team need to run the system And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, we need to get some facilities. We need to make it easy for our clients. We need to make it easy for our practitioners to bring this to life, remove the frictions. And ultimately, can we make a business out of that? And I should have known that early on, we probably couldn't have made a business out of it, but I'm glad I didn't know what we didn't know. No partners, no investors, all the different things, a space that didn't exist, purpose-built, award-winning facility on leased land, like all that kind of stuff was like all the stuff you don't do. And man, I'm glad I didn't know what I didn't know, because the affinity of people sharing those values, that work ethic, and adding value back to our clients' lives has created something that just absolutely inspires me. But that culture, that community, that the power that comes from we in serving is by far the most fulfilling thing as an organization that we do.
Yeah. You mentioned that, wish you didn't know all the things you didn't know. And that's a really interesting thing to think about, because part of what allowed those doors to open, you were able to open that facility on university land, be able to do all these different things, is you believed that it could and should be done. Yeah. And that belief is fucking infectious.
Powerful.
And when you step in, and I don't know, maybe the AD, who were you meeting with, the AD, the athletic director, or the whatever campus administrator, and you're coming through and you're looking at them, and every ounce of your being is telling them, this is going to be fucking awesome.
Yes.
You just wait and see.
Yep.
It's not even so much the words. I'm sure you had a good plan, and I'm sure, even though that plan probably dramatically changed from what it was, what you came to them with was every cell of your body screaming, trust me, I got this. Mm-hmm. And they're going to, listen to your words, but their 90% subconscious is also going to be saying, man, this dude is really onto something. He's going to deliver. And so that'll inform their mind to say, oh yes, well, that proposal looks good. I'll push it through the chain. Yep. But it's that belief that was the real magic.
Spot on.
That was the iceberg underneath the water that was driving this potentiality.
And I think being all in is that, like, if you're diving off the edge of your dock, you shouldn't be thinking about how cold's the water going to be, because you already made the decision, right? It's like there's no going back. You don't get to reverse that one. So I think it really is just it, and that is just an unbelievably superhuman superpower to be all in on something you're really passionate about. And that's why I'm always passionate about helping people find what that is, aligning that passion and the purpose with a plan, and then making sure that we just help them build the skill sets that they need to do that for a long time, because you also have to sustain it. It's not the one meeting. It's seeing every day is game day. You're going to have wins and you're going to have failures throughout the day. It's how we continue to react to them to move the ball forward to the greater good. And if you want to go fast, go alone, right? If you want to go far, go together. And you need to understand that you can't do it all yourself. If you truly want to achieve something special, you should always look and surround yourself with people that are better than you are and learn from them. And it's awesome when you start to think about it, that I can now walk down the hall. Don't hold on too tight. Don't have a hero complex that you have to be all things to all people. This is about building a sustainable system and team and engine that continues to just ignite things. And now it's taken on a life of its own that we work really hard to make sure it stays alive by giving it the right things as an organization. And and I think, listen, to your point, if you were to try to take this great passion of whatever vision that the listener may have, and you were to go talk to the financial investors in Silicon Valley or in New York or Boston, ultimately, they're going to believe in a space. They'll have a bet on a space. But really, every one of them will say they're always taking a bet on the individual. Yep. Right? Yep. And that individual to create an open growth mindset, to create the culture, to have the relentless determination and all those things that you're going to need to be successful. But you better have, as you just stated, and I love it and feel it here, is an open growth-minded organization and approach.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started on it, I raised money from two different people, and I put together a 35-page business plan with all the charts and graphs or whatever. And I gave it to them, and they skimmed through it just to see if I didn't have Sunday comment.
You didn't read that.
Just make sure it wasn't fucking Garfield in there or something. And then they looked at me and they're like, are you all in on this? Are you going to go for it? And I was like, hell yeah, I am. This is what I'm here to do. And then they just threw the report back to me and was like, all right, I'm in. Yeah. And that's how it started, because they understood that it is a bet on people ultimately. Because even the best plan, if the person behind that plan is shaky, they will sabotage it. They will self-destruct
every time.
That plan 100 times out of 100, no matter how good it is.
And we know that plan, just like you go back to sport, that plan's only going to work for so long. You need to see what's working out of the plan and then stop doing the stuff that isn't working in the plan, but have the strategy. And, as I surround in this unbelievably cool office and right, the approach that you come from, strategy is the art of saying no, just like with people. Stop having the negative self-talk, stop looking around all this other stuff and start to narrow down your focus on, oh, that's the direction I want to go. And that's the focus that I have. And I start to see these wonderful things that are actually within focus that I wasn't paying attention to earlier because I was too distracted by the negative self-talk or the rest. And man, I love seeing people catch on to that. It inspires me every time.
Yeah. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that was about not needing to always take credit for the result that you're going for, right? And I think that's something we can get caught in, because if you're just trying to do something so you can get the credit, then it's not really a pure mission. Like your mission, your it should
That's
be
the ego.
what is the effect you want to have, and what can you contribute? But whether that's indirect and you never get credit for it or you get credit for it,
doesn't matter.
That shouldn't matter. It should be what creates the maximal effect, like what accomplishes the mission. And I think there's a line from Cyrano de Bergerac, my favorite play, where he talks about how his love for Roxanne was so pure that he only cared that she laughed, whether she never knew that it was him that was causing her to laugh. The laughter born of his sacrifice, just that she was laughing was enough.
It's true love.
That's real love. And if you love your mission, if you love the people, then you don't need the credit for it. And so having other people come in and help you, actually giving them some extra credit, pushing them. And that's something I see you do all the time. You're always giving. And guess what?
I love
the
that.
more you give, the more it comes back anyways.
Amen, right? I'm glad. It's great that it does. And I think if I'm anything, I look at it as just that. If you talk to mom and dad from that early time, I love to give. If you look at me in sport, I won probably every coach's award, to a fault though, right? Because that greatest strength could be your greatest weakness at the same time, right? Like loyalty to, a person that doesn't necessarily, isn't putting in that same effort, you can hold on too long. And I think when you start to really look at that element of just giving, like that's my whole fulfillment. And in our organization, in our culture, and even how we go through our people operations and look at our approach to human capital, like we want to attract people that have genuine fulfillment by helping others achieve their goal. Because it goes back to that early premise that, Amy talked about being egotistical. I grew up in a field where people would pound their chest and take credit for that player going through that tunnel. If they had success, they were taking credit for that. And that just always was something that was so opposite of my DNA. I was always about, we're here to serve, to support. And I love to sit behind the scenes, and our team does as well, and just help people do what they want to do better. Like, just absolutely love it. Fulfillment. When we were down in Brazil, I was there for the World Cup finals. German national team was a client of ours a long time. I didn't realize, like, when you're in that process with these types of players and you look at and you truly understand the person living inside the body who is this player that people buy their jerseys. Yeah. When they have these monumental components of, wow, my legacy is going to have a World Cup championship to it. It isn't about them pounding their chest. It's almost this relief of part of the joy that they're bringing these people. This, like they're representing, and they put that jersey on to represent the people. And what that does to them and the fulfillment. It's just like, those are the things that are like 3 or 4 layers deep. It's not about the trophy. It's not about that. It's about, like, we did it together as a community for a greater good. And that just becomes really special. And those are usually only the teams that can go win it. Because the ones that are about the me's and the I's and they don't necessarily play together, tons of talent, but it takes way more than talent to achieve.
Yeah, it's like the Saints Super Bowl run after Katrina.
Oh,
which is
inspirational.
One of the beautiful moments in sports, right?
Inspirational.
Where, like, really you could feel the New Orleans Saints like doing this for the community, and the community looking to them for like hope and some ray of sunlight in a bleak, kind of watery, gray world that they'd been thrust into. Yeah. And it was really beautiful to see that, and it seemed like the universe conspired in a certain way.
But it's always been there, right? Like, that's the thing. But that ego and the egotistical nature in me, like serving me, blinds you to what's been around you the whole time. And that's why I say I love it when people, if hopefully they can in their lifetime, make the switch to be about we and to serve and to, like, take efforts in a greater good and elevate others. when you see that happen for the first time in them and like what that actually means, it is the most contagious thing. To me in life, like that's what it's always been about for me. I get inspired by the people that have that and share that gift and give it to others. And our vehicle, right, that we both share a passion for, is a great way to transfer that. Some people do it through creating a beautiful park, right? Through architecture, through food, through all these different things. But we get to create it in a way that directly engages with people, finding the person inside of them, helping them bring it to the forefront, then just helping them have a game plan and helping them build skill sets that power them on their way. And then you just get out of the way and they just keep doing good. And they're going to fall off the horse, sure. But it's like, yeah, we've been there. Let's get up. Let's go. Get knocked down every day.
Yeah, exactly. And share those.
For sure.
Things, you know, I mean,
for sure.
That's the stuff we both work with the top athletes in the world, and people, you can kind of idolize these people and put them on a pedestal and make them non-human, but they're all going through the same shit you and I are.
Absolutely. They're people.
Have fights with their girlfriend and wife. They have nights where they don't sleep. They have times where they're super stressed. They have times where they're bummed out, you know, and you can't say, oh yeah, I wish I had those problems. Like, you don't know what struggles, what pressures, you can never put yourself in that situation and imagine what it's like unless you actually know that person and try to see out of their eyes. And we're all in the same boat. You know,
Agreed.
It's just different opportunities, different scales, different skill sets, different pressures, different things. But fundamentally, we're just people trying to figure it out.
And Aubrey, that goes back to the earlier thing. I want people to understand that professional athletes world is no harder or no easier, right? And nor is it like, when we really look at it, no one should put, oh, my world's harder than your world right now. Yeah. Oh, because it is always in context and relatedness to that individual. And it doesn't matter what you think or I think. It's the reality of their situation and how they feel about it at this time is the truth. There's no need to have a leaderboard on that.
Nope.
That is them. And that is their truth. And our job is to seek to understand their truth. And then how do we start to help them get the skill set to improve the truth that they're on and how they're perceiving things, and off we go. But I think that's where we get all these comparisons, especially in today in metrics or pro sports no, listen, there's people living inside the body. Take all the other stuff away. I have professionals that are either traveling for business and doing everything that they can. And I've got professionals that are traveling for business, and that means that they're on 162 Major League Baseball games. But they're both road warriors. They both have, interrupted sleep. They both have to work the same strategies. They both have to show up and hit, win more than they lose, or they aren't going to have a job. And they both have goals and objectives. Like, these are exactly the same. And just because this person, more people know about it because they follow sport, I've never even, and I hate to say this, I'm not even that big a sport fan. Right? Don't, just because they're inside the Gladiator Stadium, don't think that's more important. And you know what? There might only be 1% of this population that actually care about sport. And the challenge, going back to the thing about the name on the back of the jersey and the 60,000 screaming fans, is they really don't care about you. And all you have to do is, it's one step removed if you take the name off the back of the jersey. But there's going to be a time where you are walking through the supermarket and you think you're important. Nobody else even knows who you are in that supermarket. So you need to start getting that out of your head pretty quick and understanding that if you're there and you can make somebody else in the store like, hey, I like your this today, or, oh, I like that product, that Onnit product too. And just getting out of your own way, then you start to have a better relatedness. Those that don't understand that journey are the ones that fall off the cliff the most.
I think most of us are not actually sports fans. We're people fans.
Amen.
And and we just like watching people when they have to dig deep and when they find something awesome in those emotional moments. Like, those are the parts of sports that we really love. And it doesn't matter really the scale. When you know somebody, you can be watching high school sports and see someone really
even more so,
or younger. Or, I remember some of the greatest sports moments of my life. Right, so I was friends with TJ Dillashaw. He's like a 8-1 underdog against Henan Barao. And he just came out and he performed at like the 100th percentile, what he was capable. Cody Garbrandt did that to Dominic Cruz, another one of my friends that I was able to watch it. And I'm just literally tears pouring
because
out of
that,
my face.
Right?
Because they reached for something else.
Absolutely.
But guess what? When Whitney was fighting her first amateur boxing match that didn't even have a ref, but I knew, and I'd watched her training and I saw her perform to that same absolute 100th, maybe 105th percentile, like the best she's ever performed in that. it was just as exciting and
Right?
just as
More
rad.
so. More so.
And it didn't matter the scales. Like that human being really reached and found something special. And we see that in the gym. It's not just Tim Kennedy. When Tim Kennedy crushes a workout, I'm like, yeah, cool. Tim Kennedy crushed a workout. But when Gordon, who's, like 380 pounds, when he touches the ground for the first time on his, bending over and his hamstrings are flexible enough, like that is a win that's almost more inspiring to the rest of us than Tim crushing a crazy 300 workout.
Yep. And that's what I want people to truly understand is like there's world-class performances happening in your own life every day. You taking the time if somebody slips and falls or if they drop something or to just do something, random act of kindness for others. Like that's an unbelievable catch. Like you just scored, like look for him, you know?
When that thing falls off the table and you grab it,
right? Those things. There's, just elevating others, find a way. Like I don't think people do it enough or give themselves enough credit for these, like just your effect on those around you. If you have a positive effect on those around you, like that is your A game. You are playing at this absolutely top level, right? And if you go nail your presentation or, you're hitting your metrics at work or, showing up at home when you pull in the garage and just leaving the day behind, focusing on what you're about to step into and who do you want to bring forward? What do you want them to see walking through that door? And for us guys, it's like keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Just walk in, give her a kiss on the cheek, give him a kiss on the cheek, whatever it's going to be. And then like the chance of the rest of your day, evening goes well is pretty high. You bring work home, you bring the ego, you bring all that baggage home. Listen, I have a pretty deep philosophy. If I don't share baggage with people, if people can't help me work through that, if they can't help move that forward, I don't want to come home and throw my trash on them where they can't do anything about it. I want to make sure like that they don't deserve that. But, I think those are the types of things where like, come home, be this, like, who do you want to be? But have these little intention-filled moments. Be a second, a minute, and man, it's like life-changing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ethos. Figure out, can they really help you, or are you just dragging them into your cave with them by throwing your emotional shit on top?
That's your ego. That's your ego right there, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to show you how bad a day I had because my day was worse than your day, and you should feel for me. And like, I'm not like, when it comes to things that jump out at me, like definitely not into entitlement because I love performers, and I definitely not into victims. And people get victimized all the time, but it's how they react to that. And I think a lot of people like you were, stating last night, if you look all day long for all these things that are going wrong, they're going to go wrong. If you're looking for the things that you want to go right, that's toward your vision, your purpose, you're going to latch onto those and they're going to aggregate more than the bad stuff.
What you can't control is how you affect those around you. Like that is a choice,
Spot
that mental
on.
state that you're able to bring towards everybody else and also how you feel about yourself. Like we control so much of that. And we have to be careful of these self-defeating, short-circuiting things. And I've even caught myself doing something too. Like let's say I perform something excellently and I give a great speech, but maybe the speech was only to, like I gave a probably one of the best speeches of my life, but it was to, about 60 to 80 people. And I was like, well, fuck, it's not like I did a TED talk or something like that. And so I had this like self-defeating thing, like, well, I didn't do it on a big stage or anything. There's only 80 people, what does that matter? And so I just short-circuited, just feeling, no, man, that was 80 people. All you could do is speak to those 80 people and you really nailed it, man. Good job. Instead, I was like, well, good job, man. You only spoke to 80 people today.
Exactly. Right. Especially you with such a big voice.
Yeah, why does that even come in? But I think we do that. Like we'll perform something great. It was like, well, it's not like I'm in the NBA or something. It's like not like I played for the Golden State Warriors when I did that. Whatever. You can only do, it's only Why? Why do we do that?
I don't know. It's that other little voice in there that you just need to get rid of.
Yeah.
And if you view it in more of a flow state, that your goal for the day is with each interaction that you have, that you're present, you're focused, and you're probably positive around that. That's all I can do. It might be 1, might be 10, might be, in your case, millions that are listening. But
the scale doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't fucking matter.
It is you genuinely being you at every opportunity that you have to do that. And it's not you. Like the thing I don't like, because it goes back to this coaching thing, like the coach, to your example earlier, doing the coach on others, right? Like negative and this and all, like this top down type of thing. Man, I want to go side by side. I want to find a way to like be inside and like just power and lift and right. That's the whole difference between like what we're trying to do. And in order to do that, you better really know yourself, and you better continue to take care of yourself and have the energy and the passion that you need to be you, because every one of those interactions have to be genuine and fulfilled. If you're, and you will, right? Like we all do it, like travel so much and you're not sleeping, not because you didn't want to, but because like that was a schedule. It's a 32-hour day, international travel. You got 6 before the next, but you have strategies for it. You're going to show up and you're going to bring it and be as genuine as you can, but you have to take care of yourself or you can't sustain. You can't achieve anything great.
Amen to that.
It's fun.
We did it. We podcasted.
Done.
Great to hang with you, brother.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah,
hey, listen, and thanks for bringing me into your community. And I think what I'm most passionate about this partnership, a lot of times people view Exos and the precision and the science and the performance. And I know the power of culture, of community, of values, the petri dish in which all that stuff radiates from. And when I first met you and I first walked through the doors and I met the team, I experienced the product, the approach. I felt right at home, but it was also right at home because everyone here was equally as welcoming. And I think between the two of us, the raw ingredients and how we've come toward helping others in our ways is going to bring a lot of hope for everybody listening and in the community, because I know we'll both continue to share it. And I hope others get on board, whether they're our competitors, not our competitors. I don't view life that way.
Right.
There's plenty of people to help out there. And I just really believe in the power of our partnership that will continue to elevate and upgrade lives.
No doubt. That's what we're here to do.
Cool.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Aubrey.
Take care, everybody. Aubrey's powerful. Aubrey squared.